Hello, everyone. Good morning, Stockholm, and good evening, Taipei. My name is Chen Yijie, a junior research fellow working with the Taiwan project at the Institute for Security and Development Policy, ISDP. My project colleague, research fellow August Jensen, and I are delighted to host our final pre-election lecture ahead of Taiwan's upcoming election this Saturday. Before delving into today's presentation topic, I would like to also extend my gratitude to our dedicated outreach coordinator, Anna Aremut, and ISDP intern, Tuve Yaremurut, both whom have played instrumental roles in making this lecture happen. After a long campaign with several twists and turns, this Saturday, January 13th, we will finally reach the day of Taiwan's presidential and legislative elections. Taiwan's election has been in the spotlight for several reasons due to complicated cross-strait relations with China, alleged election interference from Beijing, Taiwan's pivotal role in geopolitics and the global supply chain, and of course, the rivalry between the US and China on the international arena. Today's lecture will explore Taiwan's presidential election through perspectives of the developments on the campaign trail and the factor of cross-strait relations, as well as analyze the geopolitical implications for the Indo-Pacific region. Before we start this exciting lecture, it is my distinct honor and privilege to introduce our speaker for today, Dr. Bo-jiun Jing. Dr. Jing is a senior research fellow at the Oxford Taiwan Studies Programme within the Oxford School of Global and Area Studies. He's also an associated research fellow at ISDP. His research and publication primarily focus on Taiwan-Southeast Asia relations, Taiwan's cybersecurity strategy, and the international relations of the Indo-Pacific region. Dr. Jing holds a PhD in international political economy from King's College London and is the author of the monograph titled Taiwan and Southeast Asia, Opportunities and Constraints of Continued Engagement, which was published by the University of Maryland School of Law. Without further ado, we extend a warm welcome to Dr. Jing. The floor is yours.
Yes, because most events are back to in person, so I have to get used to this again. And thank you so much for EGF for your kind introduction, and many thanks to the whole ISTP team for hosting me. It's great to be back at ISTP, even just virtually. Today's webinar is very timely as nearly 20 million Taiwanese voters are heading to the polls in just 3 days. The quadrennial presidential and legislative elections will take place this Saturday, as EJ has pointed out, and the results will be out that night, which will certainly be of consequence and have several implications for the future of Taiwan, if not the whole region and the world. So I have prepared some slides, and I will start sharing them right now. Give me a second. Can you all see the slides? EJ, is that working?
Yes.
The slide. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you all again. And this is during the, right now is the main kind of 5 p.m. in Taipei. So maybe later at this point, if you find my screen, my background is too dark, please let me know and I will just turn the light on. Okay. So again, my name is Bo-jiun Jing. I'm currently working as a senior research fellow at Oxford University, and I previously worked at ISTP as a research fellow in Taiwan study as well. Let's get started. Right. As there are many. Hold on. Let me try to. Okay. As there are many things to unpack, I'll just let's get started. First, I will briefly discuss the dramatic collapse of the opposition alliance. Secondly, I will quickly go through the candidates' profiles on these 3 presidential tickets. Then I will touch upon their view on national defense, cross-strait relations, and foreign policy. Then I will briefly talk about Chinese pressure during the election time. And then I will also talk about other major issues, mostly domestic issues in Taiwan during the campaign trail. And finally, I will provide a quick overview of the landscape of the legislative yuan, 立法院, LY elections. Okay, in November last year, on the Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP side, also known as Green Camp, the current VP William Lai was the sole candidate, throwing his hat in the ring. The only uncertainty lay in determining his running mate, although it seemed highly likely that then Taiwanese representative to the U.S. Xiao Mei-ching, or Peking Xiao, would be the vice presidential candidate. On the opposition side, the Kuomintang, or KMT, and Blue Can, the Taiwan People's Party, or TPP, and YCAN had long explored a deal to collaborate and come up with one joint presidential ticket, as they consistently argue that more than 60% of the population desire an electoral turnover this time. However, it wasn't until mid-November when KMT and TPP leaders signed a deal that the blue-white collaboration seemed poised to take place. So 2 months ago, people might have expected that this election to be a two-way race between the ruling DPP and the opposition alliance. How did this deal happen, and what happened to this deal? On November 15, TPP's candidate, Ko Wen-je, and KMT's nominee, Hou Yu-ih, together with KMT's chairperson, Eric Chu Li-lun, had a closed-door meeting at the former President Ma Ying-jeou's foundation. At the end of this meeting, they reached a 6-point consensus cooperation deal with Ma as a witness. Here's a rough translation of the deal, which resolved around determining which of their two nominees would lead the campaign as the presidential candidate. They agreed to aggregate the results of both public and internal party polls conducted between November 7 and 17 to ascertain which candidate has the best chance of winning. As points 1 and 2 indicate here, the winner would be announced on November 18, as stated in point 4. The most critical point is the third one here, essentially stating that if the gap between the candidates' polling results falls within the margin of error, Hou will be declared the winner. However, due to the lack of a clear definition and the polling details, there is room for different interpretations and potential disagreements. As we now know, the united opposition ticket plan didn't materialize, primarily due to this article. And based on the 6 polls agreed upon by both sides, the KMT claimed that Hou Yu-ih won over Ko Wen-je with a 5-to-1 ratio, while the TPP argued it was tied at 3 versus 3. The deadlock persisted until November 23rd, the day before the November 24th deadline to register candidates. On the 23rd, 5 individuals, including Terry Guo of Foxconn, gathered at Grand Hyatt Taipei. It was arguably one of the most chaotic and awkward moments in Taiwanese political history. Both sides, they say that they should lead the campaign, arguing in front of millions of viewers on live television. Apparently, no one wants to play second fiddle, and none of them compromised after this breakup scene. The following day, Hou Yu-ih and Ko Wen-je announced their own vice presidential picks. Okay, so as a result, we now have a three-way presidential race known as Sakadu in Taiwanese Hokkien. And these photos were taken during their registration at the Central Election Commission. Now, let's delve a bit deeper into their backgrounds, one by one. First, let's look at the ruling DPP's candidates, Lai Ching-te and Xiao Meiqing, or Mei De ticket, which incorporates a homophonic pun on the word virtue, Mei De. William Lai has served as the vice president during President Tsai Ing-wen's second term. After the DPP's notable loss to the KMT in the 2022 local elections, he assumed the chairperson seat of the DPP. And speaking of that election, we actually held an event at ICP. I remember that was a post-election analysis. So if the audience member want to have a look at it, I think it's available on ICP website and YouTube page. Okay, so after that election, Lai Ching-te became the chairman of the DPP. Earlier, he held the position of ROC premier during Tsai Ing-wen's first term and served as the mayor of Tainan City from 2010 to 2017. He was born in New Taipei City, located in the northern part of Taiwan. Lai Ching-te's running mate, Xiao Meiqing, or Biking Xiao, aka the Cat Warrior, recently served as Taiwan's representative to the US. As a cat lover, she humorously expresses her commitment to counter China's alleged aggressive wolf warrior diplomacy with her unique brand of cat warrior diplomacy. Born in Kobe, Japan, and being half Taiwanese and half American, she is fluent in Taiwanese, Mandarin, and English. It is widely speculated that Lai chose her to maintain strong relations and the smooth communication channel with the US, aiming to persuade the White House that he is capable of upholding the status quo across the Taiwan Strait. Okay, now let's turn our attention to the KMT's candidates, Hou Yu-ih and Zhao Shaokang, or Hou Kang ticket, with the pun in Taiwanese, Hou Kang, meaning a good deal. Hou Yu-ih has held the position of New Taipei City Mayor since 2018, and prior to that, he served as the deputy mayor of New Taipei for nearly 8 years, when the current KMT chairperson Eric Chu was the mayor of this most populous city in Taiwan. Before joining politics, he had a lengthy career in law enforcement, starting as a criminal police officer in 1980 and gradually climbing the ranks to become the Director General of the National Police Agency in the late 2000s. Hou was born in Jiayi County, Jiayi Xian, in the southern part of Taiwan. And Hou's last-minute running mate pick, Zhao Shaokang, is a well-known media personality. He's an experienced TV and radio host, so not surprisingly, he is quite articulate, and he has served as a legislator twice and as the Minister of the Environmental Protection administration between the late 1980s and the early 1990s. Hou's choice of Zhao is arguably due to Zhao's so-called blue blood, meaning that he is the descendants of the mainlander who moved to Taiwan with Chiang Kai-shek nationalist government around 1949. This kind of complements holds a local Taiwanese background and could consolidate support from the deep blue voters. Okay, finally, let's talk about TPP's candidates, Ko Wen-je and Cynthia Wu Xin-ying, or Ke-ying ticket, with the pun meaning Ko wins, Ko's victory. Okay. Ko Wen-je was elected Taipei City mayor and served 2 terms between 2014 and 2022. In August 2019, he founded the TPP and has served as the chairperson of the party since then. Before running for office in Taipei, he was a famous surgeon at National Taiwan University Hospital and a professor in medicine at NTU, National Taiwan University, earning him the nickname KP, referring to Professor Ke. He was born in Hsinchu, the city known for TSMC and other Taiwanese semiconductor and high-tech companies. Ko's last-minute pick for his running mate is Cynthia Wu Xin-ying, who is a wealthy business woman and a sitting legislator nominated by the TPP. She's the daughter of a wealthy Taiwan financier of Xinguang Group and was born and university educated in the United States. A popular theory about Ko Wen-je's pick is that Wu Xin-ying's wealthy background could offer some more financial resources for the 4-year-old party to compete on the campaign trails, which normally could cost a huge amount of money in Taiwan. Okay, now we have gone through all the 3 presidential candidates and vice presidential candidates. Now let's examine the most important issue area for the future president, which are defense, cross-strait relations, and foreign policy. Oh, sorry, let me just turn light on. Okay. As we all know, the matter of cross-strait relations has consistently been a significant factor in Taiwanese presidential elections, primarily due to its direct impact on national defense and foreign policy. The president, as mandated by the ROC constitutions and additional articles of the ROC constitution, bears the primary responsibility for shaping and executing these policies. Therefore, all 3 candidates have spent quite some time elaborating on how they will address the challenges in these areas. First, let's examine Lai Ching-te's policy first. Lai Ching-te's platform revolves around 2 key facets. The first facet is the continuation of President Tsai Ing-wen's 4 commitments announced during Tsai's 2021 National Day address on the double 10th of the year. Firstly, there is a commitment to a free and democratic constitutional system. The second commitment is that the ROC and the PRC should not be subordinate to each other. The third commitment is to resist the annexation or encroachment upon our sovereignty. Finally, the fourth commitment is that the future of the Republic of China, Taiwan, must be decided in accordance with the will of the Taiwanese people. The second facet of his policy platform, outlined by Lai Ching-te himself, is a 4-pillar plan for peace, detailed in his op-ed piece for the Wall Street Journal, published on the 4th of July last year. The first pillar involves building up Taiwan's deterrence. Lai pledges to expedite the transition into an asymmetric fighting force and seeks greater cooperation with partners and allies, particularly in training, force restructuring, civil defense, and information sharing. The second pillar aims to enhance economic security. Lai acknowledges the challenge posed by trade dependencies on China, creating vulnerabilities susceptible to economic coercion. He argues that Taiwan must foster secure supply chains while pursuing trade agreements that encourage diversification. The third pillar focuses on continuing to form partnership with democracies around the world. Lai highlights the Thai administration's active engagement with the world despite pressures from Beijing. Finally, the fourth pillar aims to ensure steady and principled cross-strait leadership. Okay, so given that this pillar focuses on cross-strait relations, I've included in the entire 3 paragraphs of this section with the key points highlighted in red. Firstly, much like Lai draws a connection between the 1992 consensus and Xi Jinping's roadmap for unification. The ongoing debate surrounding the 1992 consensus will be delved into later in this talk. Moving on, Lai commits to maintaining the cross-strait status quo. He emphasizes his willingness to engage in dialogue with China, provided there are no preconditions, and the interaction adheres to the principles of reciprocity and dignity. Finally, he interprets the growing PLA activities around Taiwan as efforts to influence the island's democratic elections. Lai emphasizes his commitment to working for peace and stability for the people of Taiwan and the international community. Okay, now let's look into Hou Yu-ih's policy. During his trip to the US in September last year, he published this op-ed with the Foreign Affairs, which is lengthier than Lai's WSJP's, and provide some more details about these major policies. There are 4 sections in this op-ed or commentary. First, he argues that Taiwan's most important priority should be to strengthen its national defense and deter the use of force by mainland China. He acknowledges that PLA's activities, such as its increased deployment of aircraft and vessels or gray zone tactics raises the risk of accidents and unexpected conflict. Hence, he pledges to develop asymmetric capabilities, continue arms procurement, and collaborate with the United States in various areas, such as sharing intelligence and promoting regular joint training exercises. Second, he notes that he will improve cross-strait relations based on the Constitution of the Republic of China and its amendments. His important stances include supporting the 1992 consensus, opposing Taiwan de jure independence, opposing China's one country, 2 systems, describing cross-strait relations as mutual non-recognition of sovereignty and mutual non-denial of jurisdiction, and insisting that Taiwan's future will be determined only by its own people. Under this section, Hou also proposed a 3D strategy, which I will explain later. All right, the third section is about Taiwan's international space. Basically, he still sees the US as the most important guarantor for Taiwan's security, and he hopes the US can help Taiwan join Comprehensive Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, CPTPP, and the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity, IPEF. He also notes that he will try to get observer status in WHA, ICAO, and Interpol, and enhance ties with like-minded countries, including the US, Australia, India, Japan, South Korea, and France in Southeast Asia. I am just wondering why his team or himself didn't mention European countries or EU or UK. I think it's probably an unintentional mistake. Okay, anyway, the final section touches upon his goals to improve Taiwan's energy supply chain, housing, education, and childcare systems. As mentioned, Hou Yu-ih introduces this 3D strategy in this article, referring to deterrence, dialogue, and de-escalation. To summarize his 3D strategy, he pledges that his administration will manage external and internal challenges with proactive pragmatism and be a responsible stakeholder in the Indo-Pacific region. He thinks a strong military will help deter aggression and keep at bay any prospect of war in the Taiwan Strait. And he will seek to interact constructively with Beijing in ways consistent with the Republic of China's constitution and its laws. That interaction will lead to the escalation. Finally, let's examine Ko Wen-je's platform. Before last weekend, Ko Wen-je did not submit any op-ed to foreign outlets to elaborate on his major policies. However, he accepted an interview request by Bloomberg TV in September, during which he mentioned these points. First, maintaining the status quo is the only choice Taiwan has, as the United States opposes Taiwan's reunification with China and China opposes Taiwan's pursuit of independence. Second, discussing independence or unification at this moment is futile since neither can be achieved. Therefore, there's no reason to engage unnecessary politics for something we can't achieve at this time. And finally, to handle the cross-strait relations, Ko proposes two words, deterrence and communication. What is deterrence and communication, according to his definition? To explain this, I will just quote what he said to Bloomberg. He argues, quote, Taiwan needs to have enough national defense. You can't leave a country's future completely in the hands of another country. So Taiwan needs to have the capability to protect itself. If you don't have the capability to protect yourself, you won't be given the opportunity to speak at the negotiating table. We are very clear about this. We can't go up against China with our own military. We need to let China know that attacking Taiwan would have a very high cost, unquote. Oh, quote again. As long as there is communication, it will reduce misunderstandings and constantly rising hostility between the two sides. The national defense budget needs to go up because peace comes at the cost, unquote. Okay. All right, next page, okay. So I thought I could just wrap it up there for Ko's policy, but on Sunday, just the past Sunday, The Economist published a piece written by Ko Wen-je, in which he argues that Taiwan needs a third way, and he offers three major prescriptions. First, he will pursue pragmatic economic development strategy to solve Taiwan's industrial shortages, or so-called 5 shortages, 5缺, which include water, electricity, land, labor, and talent, is according to Ko Wen-je's definition. He also pledges to join CPTPP and the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP. Second prescription is to, prescription because he's a doctor, so he uses the word around that, his profession. Second prescription is to have scientific preparation in national defense. He aims to raise the national defense budget to 3% of Taiwan's GDP from 2.5% currently, and prioritize cyber military forces and asymmetric warfare strategies. Relies primarily on volunteer military force supplemented by conscription. That's under this second prescription. Finally, on cross-strait relations, he wanted to promote more rational cross-strait exchanges, which is based on ROC constitution and five mutuals. Five mutuals meaning mutual recognition, mutual understanding, mutual respect, mutual cooperation, and empathy. 互相认识,互相了解,互相尊重,互相合作,互相谅解. But I think the translation here is a little bit missing here. In the first one, mutual recognition and 互相认识 is a bit, I don't know. From my understanding, they're quite, there's nuance there. But anyway, he proposes five mutuals. All right, so over the past month, at the presidential level, there were 3 live televised sessions of policy presentations and 1 policy debate. At the vice presidential level, there was 1 policy presentation and 1 policy debate as well. If you are interested and have some time, I highly recommend watching them on YouTube to get a taste of Taiwan's democracy. I believe there are translated versions or subtitles available if you don't speak Mandarin. Building upon the information presented in the previous slides and my analysis of the policy presentations and debates, I have summarized their position on key issues related to cross-strait relations, defense, and foreign policy in this table. In response to Chinese pressure, all 3 candidates have emphasized the need to build up deterrence capabilities and express the willingness to engage in dialogue with Beijing. While they all publicly support increasing the defense budget, their cross-strait policies differ. Following Tsai Ing-wen's approach, Lai Ching-te does not accept the 1992 consensus, as the DPP opposes its One China principle components. Hou Yu-ih supports the 1992 consensus in line with the ROC constitution, but rejects Beijing's one country, two systems proposal. Ko Wen-je has been ambiguous about it, but leans toward a critical stance on the definition of the consensus. It's worth further explaining the debate on the 1992 consensus here. For Hou Yu-ih and the KMT, they think the 1992 consensus encapsulates the tacit understanding that both Beijing and Taipei recognize there is only one China, but agree to differ on its definition. And for mainland China, it's PRC. For Taiwan, it's ROC. As for the DPP, the Tsai Ing-wen administration, as well as Lai Ching-te, have both linked the 1992 consensus to one China and one country, two systems, therefore not willing to accept it. As for Ko Wen-je, although he has publicly said that both sides across the Taiwan Strait belong to one family, 两岸一家亲, he thinks the term 1992 consensus, 九二共识, has been stigmatized in recent years and therefore needs to find a new term to replace it. Regarding their definitions of cross-strait relations, Lai Ching-te argues that the ROC and, quote, the ROC and PRC are not subordinate to one another, unquote, as I mentioned earlier. Hou Yu-ih agrees with the concept of, quote, mutual non-recognition of sovereignty and mutual non-denial of governing authority, unquote, as mentioned before as well. And Ko Wen-je simplifies it as a special relationship. As for their stance on Taiwan du jour independence or Taiwan independence, Hou Yu-ih, like KMT's longstanding position, has said he opposes Taiwan du jour independence. And William Lai has publicly said that he's a pragmatic Taiwan independence worker a few years ago. But on the campaign trail, he has explained that there's no need to declare independence, as Taiwan is already a sovereign and independent country with its official name of the Republic of China. This stance adheres to the DPP's resolution on Taiwan's future passed in May 1999. As for Ko Wen-je, although he hasn't publicly said that he is opposing Taiwan de jure independence, he has criticized Lai Ching-te's independence-leaning position. Okay, finally, concerning joining regional economic integration architecture, all of them have vowed to step up efforts to join CPTPP. As for RCEP, Hou Yu-ih and Ko Wen-je also wanted to join, but Lai Ching-te thinks its standards are lower than CPTPP, and it's dominated by China. Therefore, he would not, according to him. So I think ASEAN country would not agree with. But anyway, it's debatable. Anyway, Lai Ching-te would just focus on CPTPP. Well, in any case, due to Hou Yu-ih's positive stance toward the 1992 consensus and his clear objection to Taiwan independence, it is no secret that China would prefer the KMT to win the presidential race. And as we have seen in the past, Beijing has consistently pressured Taiwan on both the rhetorical and the military fronts. Throughout Tsai Ing-wen's presidency, China has increased its employment of gray zone tactics, employing military intimidation and information operation in an attempt to sway Taiwan's determination. For instance, starting in 2020, China escalated its military flights around Taiwan. And that year, there were 380 incursions into Taiwan's air defense identification zone, ADIZ. By 2023, this figure has surged to 1,709. And since the beginning of this year until yesterday, it's been 10 days, right? China has flown balloons into Taiwanese airspace on a daily basis. And over the past, from January 1st to the 9th, a total of 21 balloons have crossed the median line, as you can see here. And some of them have even passed through the island of Taiwan. Okay, as we can see on the New Year's Day, January 1st, the PRC sent 2 balloons crossing. They flew crossing the median line, and one northern Taiwan, and the other one just passing through the central part of Taiwan. So it's quite. I mean, this development is unprecedented, but and then we see yesterday. This one from yesterday, there's one Chinese balloon flying over Taiwan, right here. This time going through the southern part of Taiwan. Well, according to ROC, Republic of China's Ministry of National Defense, it is part of Chinese gray zone tactics, as we discussed before, in the lead up to the election day on January 13th. Well, even though the MND did not say if the military believed these balloons were for espionage purposes, they know that they are meant to harass and rattle the Taiwanese people. And by sending these balloons, I think Beijing wants to continue to send a message that a vote for the DPP may be a vote for war and a decline. Okay, so yesterday afternoon, I also received that alert. Taiwan's military sent a nationwide emergency alert message informing the Republic that China had just launched a satellite. China had just launched a satellite with its trajectory passing through airspace over southern Taiwan at 3:05 p.m. Though the message said satellite in Chinese, 卫星, and then but in English you see is air raid alert. Missile fly over Taiwan airspace, be aware. and there's no space between this comma. Sorry, just I think this English just really have to improve that. So the Ministry of National Defense later said the English version was mistaken, and they apologized for it. Taiwan's presidential office said it did not consider the launch of a Chinese satellite whose rocket flew over southern Taiwan an attempt at interference ahead of the poll. But the main opposition party questioned why the alert was issued. I think people were quite confused, and also you see the wrong translation here, right? But anyway, in any case, given the timing of the incident, both about the rocket carrying a science satellite flying over southern Taiwan and about the mistranslation, it will probably be affected in the elections because we're just 3 days ahead of the election. 3 days away, right, from the elections. Okay. Despite the dominance of cross-strait policies in the campaign, critical domestic issues such as energy, education, the cost of living, relatively low wages compared to other countries in the region, and housing and labor rights, as well as elderly care, have been prominent topics in televised presidential debates and policy presentations, including the vice presidential debate, and I think this one's either debate or policy presentation. In particular, young voters who typically do not have strong party affiliations arguably care more about who can offer solutions to the long-standing issues of low wages and high housing prices, which have not significantly improved over the past DPP and the KMT administrations. This could be one of the main reasons that DPP's Ko Wen-je has been popular among the young populations who hope that this non-traditional politician can come up with the new policies to improve their lives. Right, finally, to become the, now we briefly talk about the LY elections, because I know we only have an hour. To become the majority party, each party has to win over 57 seats, and it's widely expected that none of the major parties will secure over that number of seats. And now this is the current landscape in the LY. Pan-Green coalition, the DPP has majority, but next year, this year's election, I think KMT hopes to increase from 35 to 50, more than 50 seats, and DPP hopes to maintain 60 seats. TPP hopes to increase from 5 to 8, and the NPP hopes to increase from 5 to 7, but we'll see the results in 3 days. All right, finally, election day logistics. Polling day this Saturday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. A number of eligible voters, 19.5 million people, and first time voters, the number is about 1.02 million. There are 3 ballots, one presidential election ballot. Second one is either single member constituencies, legislative yuan ballot. The system is first past the post, and there are 73 seats. The second one is indigenous constituency LY ballot. There are 3 seats assigned to highland voters and the 3 seats assigned to lowland indigenous people. And the third one is party list legislative yuan ballot. It's a proportional representation system, and in total there are 34 seats. And across the country, there are about 18,000 polling stations and more than 200,000 staff members across the country using internet for vote counting. So if we look at the evolution of political landscape over the past 4 major elections, President Tsai of the DPP won big in the presidential elections in 2016 and 2020. But in both local elections, KMT had 2 landslide victories in 2018 and 2022. Will the next presidential election follow or break this routine? Who will 动算当选 get elected, win the election? We will see the result pretty soon. In any case, we hope that this year's elections will continue to be a free and fair one. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Jin's terrific lecture on Taiwan's presidential election. And I hope you have found the webinar informative so far. And we have now reached the exciting part, the QA session. So if you have any questions, just drop it in the box and I will address as many as possible. And we have around 15 minutes for this session. And so far, there's no questions. So I'm gonna take this opportunity for me and I'm gonna ask a question. And because Taiwan's election usually means a battle between KMT and DPP, at least in the past election, usually it's like that. And this time, Ko Wen-je from the TPP has become the third option for Taiwanese voters and even almost formed a coalition with the KMT, one of the major party in Taiwan. What does the emergence of Ko Wen-je and TPP in this election mean for Taiwan's politics, or even mean for the future election in Taiwan? Like, what do you think about it?
Well, thank you, EJ. You mean the emergence of the third party, right? The Ko Wen-je's power, right? I mean, between blue and green, Taiwanese public always want. It's been a development in Taiwan is that they want a third option, yeah, but it hasn't been really developed. Well, before we had Jem Song's People First Party, right? It's also kind of like a one-man party, and like Ko Wen-je's party. So previously we had that as well, but then primarily due to the electoral system, you see in particular the LY, the legislative yuan, the system itself is in favor of big party. So it's very difficult you have to garner at least 5% of votes in the party list system to secure at least if you get 5% of votes, and then you will get seats in the parliament. If you get about 5%, you get 2 seats, right? Because there are 34 seats assigned to these in this party list system. So it's not in favor of small parties, but I do think that this time, as I mentioned in my presentation, that TPP is very popular among young voters. I cannot cite any polling numbers right now. It's against the Taiwanese law because it's within 10 days before the elections. But I would just say that you read the newspaper, you see that Ko Wen-je is still quite popular among younger voters. And I guess for those who are tired of green versus blue, they have an option to right now to vote for this so-called white camp, right? So I mean, in the overall, I do think more competition is good for Taiwan's democracy, and especially if you have more candidates debating in the presidential debate or the policy presentations, and also the condition is that if they can debate in logical way, then it's good for Taiwan's democracy. So overall, I do think it's quite interesting. And this is three-way election. It's very hard to predict the results, and because of the emergence of TPP, and as compared to previous three-way rates, they were quite. I mean, you would probably talk about the strategic voting behavior, right? Qibao. But this time, it's not that obvious. I mean, from the ground level, from my observation on the ground, it's not that obvious, and we'll just nobody wants to predict the results, and we'll see on Saturday whether Ko Wen-je's party will how many votes he will get in the election, both in the parliament and the presidential election.
Thank you for this comprehensive answer. And there's a question from Benjamin. He asked, how will China react to an election of Lai? How concrete measures could China choose to signal this reaction?
Right, that's a very good question. I think, well, if Lai wins, and China will probably, first of all, will see the military, the fighter jet crossing the median line, right? My 2 cents is that there'll be more, because right now you see balloons. It's been relatively quiet, but later on after this Saturday, depending on the results, if the VP wins, then China will pressure Taiwan, pressure him by probably flying more fighter jets and vessels, and also send vessels crossing the median line to kind of send a signal that, okay, do not pursue Taiwan independence. Although he has already said that he will not pursue Taiwan to draw independence. Taiwan is already an independent country according to him, and the name is Republic of China. And that's something that I think the U.S. is can agree on. I mean, right? You don't chance to say quote. Right, and also the other thing we can look into, we can follow is that the diplomatic ally, the number of diplomatic ally. Taiwan right now has 13 former diplomatic ally in the world, and it has dropped. I mean, during over Taiwan's 2-term presidency, Taiwan lost 9 diplomatic allies. So we'll see in the coming months whether China will poach more Taiwan's allies, former diplomatic allies, and to show maybe that by doing so it will also pressure Taiwan on the diplomatic front, right? Other than that, I think well, China already has labeled the DPP's candidate as pro-independence candidates. So if he's elected, I don't think the cross-strait dialogues will be resumed, simply because DPP doesn't accept the 1992 consensus, because it embodies one China principle. It's against the party's platform. Right, so it will be quite intense in the future, I think, if the DPP wins. But on the other hand, I don't think it will be escalated. That I mean, it won't be a immediate threat. I think because Lai, as he mentioned, he will continue Tsai Ing-wen's approach. Right, Taiwan's for commitment and try to be as steady as possible. That's something also the Washington is expecting him to. And I mentioned in my PowerPoint slides that Xiao Mei-ching was the former Taiwanese envoy to U.S. So I think the channel is there between Taipei and Washington. But I do think they will have the consensus that they will try to keep the status quo, and also keep as stable as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. And there's another question. I think it's really interesting because related to Hong Kong. And the anonymous audience asked about, in case the KMT wins the election and their policy prevail, like how they are going to draw the line in order to not become the next Hong Kong.
Right. I think KMT stance is, from my understanding, is that Taiwan, ROC is different. Taiwan ROC is different with Hong Kong situation, right? Because Hong Kong is already going to be a part of China. I mean, it's already, right, by law. And Taiwan, right. I mean, if Hou Yu-ih wins, he will try to resume cross-strait talks, and because during Ma Ying-jeou, he will follow Ma Ying-jeou's approach, which is using 1992 consensus as a password to enter into this communication channel, and to resume dialogue and resume communication, and to de-escalate risk. But on the sovereignty issue, I mean, KMT stands on 1992 consensus is still since they insist on ROC constitution, ROC sovereignty, right? So it's the nuance here is like it's also it's ROC, it's not PRC because KMT doesn't accept one country two system. Candidates has been very clear, and I don't think is the majority of people in Taiwan don't want that. Don't want one country two system because given what has happened in Hong Kong. So I think the public opinion is there, and although some people in the KMT probably want more interaction with China, but my hunch is that it's mostly economically on the economic front, not on the political front. It would be too risky for them to resume talks on the political front. For example, like peace agreement or even ECFA, even ECFA negotiation on goods trade and service trade pact. It would be super sensitive and controversial, I think, for Taiwanese public. And so I think Hou Yu-ih, if he wins, he will be very careful walking through this line and just not to get too close with China. But I mean, they already said they accept the 1992 consensus, and I think that's the basis for trust between the CCP and the KMT. And on that basis, they can resume talks.
Thank you. And due to the time, I think I will just take the one last question. And the question is from our Associated Research Fellow, Zusha, and she would like to know, how do you think the future of EU and Taiwan relations under a DPP president and under a KMT leadership? Would Lai prioritize more cooperation with Europe in the future?
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Suja. Actually, Suja is the expert in this field. I should ask her her opinion. But I think, yeah, as I just mentioned, and I'll start with KMT because as I mentioned in my slides, Hou Yu-ih's foreign affairs piece didn't mention Europe. I was very surprised. He could easily just add friends in Southeast Asia and Europe, right? Because if you talk about like-minded country sharing democratic values, so I think anyway, I think it's a mistake for them, and I do think well, no matter it's KMT or DPP's government for the next 4 years, they will try to enhance ties with Europe. Actually, they will try to enhance ties with Europe, Southeast Asia, and US, Japan, right? All the democratic allies, simply because it's good for Taiwan's international space. And so especially right now, you have a US-China competition, and also EU and China's relationship are not in a good shape. So that kind of creates some rooms for Taiwan to engage more with Europe. So I don't think, I think it has bipartisan support. Well, also, we should also talk about TPP, right? Because there's also, I think, yeah, I mean, there will be a continuation in the MOFA Ministry of Foreign Affairs system. I do think they will try to increase ties, economic ties. Now we have a TSMC investment in Germany, and we're talking about the supply chain security, and Europe plays a big role in this. And Europe is it's actually the largest foreign source for Taiwan's FDI. So any future president will definitely have to focus on that and try to attract more investment from Europe or bilateral investment, right, with each other, and potentially on other fronts, because right now Europe has the Indo-Pacific strategy.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jing. And sadly, because of the time, we cannot address any more questions now, and we have to wrap up today's webinar. And I would like to thank you all for your fantastic questions and Dr. Jing's lecture and answers, of course. And I also want to express our gratitude for your active participation. Your engagement has truly enriched our webinar and the discussion today. Hopefully, I will see you in our next webinar.
Thank you so much.